So yesterday we tried covering or understanding what is edit validate rule all about. We also revisited what are declare constraints and OPJ validate rules, and we understood how exactly we can enhance our applications validation by using these rules within Pega. So that is something which we did as part of yesterday's exercise. Perfect. And that part is covered. With that part covered, the next piece where I want your focus to move is decisioning rules in Pega. So the decisioning rules, we have already seen few of them, which is the when rule. We saw the when rule. It has a single condition based on which if it is evaluating to true, then we are performing some task. We use the when rule, right? When we designed the data transform, we used the when rule. Yes or no? We created a when rule and we used it, right? Perfect. So in the same way, we have other rules for decisioning in Pega. There are few, the most important ones, which are something which we will be using. One is decision table. There is something called as decision tree and map value as well. So today we'll be focusing on understanding what is a decision table, and further we'll understand other rules as well. So when rule is when you have one if condition. We checked that, right? We saw if we have single if condition, we can use it. One if condition, we use the when rule. The when rule is used when we have one if condition. We saw that, right? For example, if I go to my app explorer, expand the decisioning category, I should be able to see a when rule, right? Which is build shape address same. We are evaluating if that is true, right? One of the property we are checking if it is true, a single condition, if it evaluates to true is what we are saying. Similarly, there is something called as decision table, which helps you understand based on a table you are deriving some values, you're deciding what is a decision table. It's pretty similar to how you take decisions. For example, let us say if someone is trying to work out and he's trying to build, you know, he's doing workout. If the conditions could be something like this, so I will keep condition and returns here. Okay, what should be returned? Okay, and for example, if I say if it's Monday, that person is going to work out on legs, let us say someone who is going to gym. Else if Tuesday, shoulders. Else if Wednesday, he is working out on, let us say, biceps. Else if Thursday, he is going to work out on, let us say, triceps. Else if Friday, he is working out on, let us say, abs. Otherwise, on the rest of the days, he is going to, let us say, otherwise he is resting. On rest of the days he is going to rest. Do you understand this? What are we trying to say here? It's just a normal decisioning process where, for example, a user is deciding based on a condition, he's going to return something like, if it is Monday, he's going to work on legs. Can I call that as a decision a user has made or an individual is making? Yes, no, guys? Are you guys able to hear me? Okay, perfect. Okay. So Do we understand how decisioning is done in a day-to-day basis? We do it for very small stuff also, right? For example, if you have sufficient time, then you want to have idli with stuff like that. Or if you have very less time, you just eat cornflakes and you go home. That's again a logic. It's nothing but if and else logic, right? This logic is nothing but it's if and else logic. The below thing is nothing but a if and else logic. Decision table is also exactly similar to that. It imitates something a logic like this, where if one condition is met, then you are returning something. If it's not met, you're continuing your if and else table. There is a table. Can I call this a table where decisions are made? Yes or no? Right? We can call it because a decision is being made based on what condition is being met. For example, today is a Wednesday, so biceps is something this particular guy is going to work on. That's what this decision table is returning. So you have to imagine a decision table to be something like this, where it's a rule in Pega, of course. It is used to evaluate conditions and return required results. We are evaluating a condition here. We are evaluating if it is Monday. If it is Monday, we are returning a result. DT decision table is a rule in Pega which is used to evaluate condition and return a result. We are returning a result based on condition. If the condition passed is Thursday, then the result is triceps. Yes or no? Right? That's what we are trying to do. We'll try to see how we can, create one in Pega. Just to give an example of understanding, I am showing you this. Hey, this is also something which is available is what I'm trying to help you understand. So you can call this decision table from multiple places, from a flow shape, activity, from a declare expression. Also inside the decision tree is what we can refer this. We'll see that. We'll try to implement one and we'll understand it in a much better way. So it will give us a clear understanding. So what I want to do to implement something similar in my workflow, I do have agency name and agency code. Do you remember? We have defined agency name and agency code. If we expand this, there is agency name and agency code. And for this, we defined a section also where we will be capturing agency details. If I expand the user interface category under my work class, there is agency section. All I want to do is based on the agency code, I want to populate the agency name. Okay, using decision table is what I want to achieve. Along with this, we will also learn another rule which is called as a declare on change. Another rule we will try to learn today along with this thing, along with the decision table, is called as declare on change. This is also a declarative rule. Two rules are the takeaway from today's class. One is decision table, another one is declare on change. We'll see how exactly and where exactly will we be using that. To start with, let's try to create a decision table and see how exactly we can create a decision table. So this table is pretty straightforward. For agency, we are going to create the table. All I have to do is right click on this work class, go to the decisioning category, create decisioning category and say decision table. Right click on your work class, click on decisioning category and say decision table. I just clicked on that. I can provide a name here. Let me call it something like agency table. Create and open. So this should give me a decision table. See the form. Is it mimicking something which we already saw? We saw the gymnast table was decisioning was also something similar to this. Yes or no? right? There's a condition and there is a return. What he is going to return. If it is Monday, legs, Tuesday, like that. We saw that, right? We have seen a sample example. So here, once you are here, right, you can pass stuff like that. Like if it is Monday, return me something like that. We can do that. How can we do that? For now, we are going to use, agency code here. Based on the agency code, we want to return something, right? That's what we want to do. Let us say, what do I want this particular column to be? So in my example, it was days, but here it has to be agency code. Let us see. So all I'm trying to do here is, for example, if you see the example which we saw here, in the conditions here, days is what we were using. For this first column, we are using days. Based on days, it was returning, you know, the kind of exercise he wants to do. We're using days here as the first column. All these are days, right? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are days. Yes or no? That's a property. Similarly, here you can refer to a property where if you once you give the name to this decision table, you have to click on this particular cell, the first top cell, where you can specify what column do you want to stream the entire column with. So I can say dot and I can say agency code. Are we able to see this? Do we understand how exactly I'm mapping the agency code in the decision table? Created the decision table, opened it, and I clicked on the canceling this on this particular cell, the top cell, to map the property against which I want to have this decision enabled. Dot, and I want to do it on agency code. Perfect, right? And I say agency code here. What I want to do, I want to check if the agency code is equal to such and such code, and if that is the case, I want to return something. That's what I want to achieve here. I told agency code, I say save. So if you see, the column got populated with agency code. So whatever I give here will be a agency code, corresponding agency code. Let us say I have multiple agency codes. Okay, let's say I have multiple agency codes. To give multiple agency codes, it is nothing but, if you understand, decision table is nothing but multiple if and else ifs, right? So if Monday, this thing, else if Tuesday, this thing is what we are trying to do. To do that, you need multiple rows here, and which can be done by using this thing. See, insert a row above, insert a row before or after is something which you can achieve from here. I want multiple rows here. Let's say I have 5 agency codes. I can add multiple else ifs. Do you understand how we can add multiple else ifs, guys? Perfect. So let us say the agency code is, we can define agency code AG001 is the agency code, and if that agency code is AG001, let's say it is Delhi. In the same way, I can copy this and say 2, sorry, 2, and I can say this is Bangalore. 3, Hyderabad. 4, Chennai. Like this. We can define as many agency codes you want. You can define like this. Too complex? Able to understand? Yes, no? Guys, right? 5, Mumbai. Okay, and if there is no agency code specified, otherwise means if they specify a code which is not as part of this thing, then I have to return no agency. Does it make sense? This is it. This is a decision table. All this is doing is it is taking a decision based on the agency code which is being passed. For example, if you are passing agency code 4, then it is going to return Chennai. Does it make sense? Okay. So to trigger this decision table, we need an activity. Okay, we need an activity to trigger this table. So let us see how we can call this decision table in an activity. To do that, I'll try to create an activity under my work class. All that we have done so far is created decision table, declared these guys, and now I want to create an activity which will call this decision table. Let us see, technical and activity. Under the work class, go to create technical and activity. This should help you create an activity. And I'm mapping this, so I'll call it agency map activity. Part of auto insurance class, create and open. Perfect. So now I created an activity to track this. What is this activity? In this activity, I should be able to call that decision table, right? I should be able to call that decision table. So whenever the agency code is selected, we need to populate the, if you see the section, agency section, whenever the code is selected, the name should get populated. That's what we are trying to achieve using decision table. When someone supplies the agency code, the agency name should populate automatically. But when you change here, that is when this has to get populated, yes or no? When this value, the agency code value has changed, the agency name has to populate. That is the requirement right now. And to achieve that, we are using decision table. But this decision table has to be called whenever this thing has changed. And to do that, we are saying we will be using activity, right? And for that, I have created a activity. And now to call that, I will use, there is a decision table map, property hyphen. If I do property hyphen, am I able to see property map decision table here, guys, in the method category in activity? Right? Let us select that. Let me expand this guy. And now here I can select what is my decision table. What property should do I want to populate? What is the property I want to populate with? Agency name, right? Based on the based on the result of this decision table, I want to populate the agency name. Yes or no? Right? That's what we are trying to do. That's it. Only one step. One thing which we have to remember when we try to use activity to trigger a decision table is we need to, make sure what type of activity it is, right? So to do that, if you go to the security tab, the activity type here is set to activity. But this, what do you want to do? When do we want to trigger this activity? When agency code, right? If someone uses changes the agency code or any change happens on the agency code property, I want to trigger this activity. Yes or no? Right? Then we have to choose OnChange in the security tab. Very important, guys. When you are doing OnChange sort of implementation, you will have to choose that in the security tab. When you try to define an activity for mapping a decision table and OnChange of some property, for example, whenever the agency code changes to any junk character, for example, if it changes to 1 2 3 4 5 6, then the result should be no agency code. Yes or no, according to the decision table? In the decision table, there is no mapping for 1 2 3 4 5. So the result should be no agency. That means this property has changed. The agency code has changed to some value. Based on that value, the agency decision table has to be triggered. To trigger that, we are using this activity. Where will we call that? We'll see that. But when you define the activity, of course, you have to specify the step where you are mapping the decision table. And on the security tab, you have to tell this activity type is for OnChange. Was it understood, guys? Perfect. Okay. So let's try to complete this flow to understand this much better. So I created my decision table, created an activity to call it, but now this has to be configured, or this has to be used somewhere in my flow. Of course, in my flow, in the sense, in a section, you will have to refer to this particular rule. Where can I refer to this particular rule is something we will understand, right? Going back to this guy, this section. So what do you want to do? We want to trigger this on change of a particular property, which is agency code, right? Whenever agency code changes, we have to call this particular activity. To do that, if you expand the decisioning category, there is a rule called declare on change. Are we able to see that? Today, before we have seen constraints, we have seen when rule. Today we are seeing, you know, decision table and declare on change. Do you see a category for declare on change? Just click on that. Like the rule itself tells, this is a rule which will get triggered whenever a property changes. We'll see that. So to take the example we are trying to implement further, I'll create one declare on change rule. Right click on your work class, create decision, and choose declare on change. We created a decision table. Now we are doing creating a declare on change rule. Okay, let us see what does it give us to configure. Under decisioning category, both the rules we are working today are under decisioning category. The takeaway is only that decision table and declare on change. How you can create them, how you can use them is what we are focusing on. We will call this uh, agency. Now we'll call it fill agency name. We are filling the agency name. Tab, create and open. Perfect. So now it is asking us what are the properties you want to watch as part of this particular on change rule. What is the property we are going to monitor if it is changed? Agency code. Based on the code, you want to trigger and fetch the name. Name is not something the user will be able to choose. He's only going to provide the code, and the name is something we have to populate based on this table. When the user provides the code, this value is something which we have to return. Yes or no? Yes or no, guys? So in this declare on change, what do you want to do? We want to call a activity. There is an activity which we have defined. Yes or no? Whenever this code changes, call this activity is what we are saying. What is that activity? Agency map activity. Make sense, guys? But we did this change, perfect. But how are we referring this in our flow? Like where exactly are we telling that this particular value has to be called or triggered? Where are we doing that? Let's try to see that, right? Let me save this. This is saved. Perfect. So we created three rules so far: one decision table, one mapping activity for that decision table, one declare on change where we are telling watch this agency code. If it changes, trigger this activity is what we are saying as part of this particular declare on change rule. Now let me go to my agency section and do some configuration. What is that? What do I want to do based on the agency code? For example, if I open the gear icon on the agency code cell property, if I click on this gear icon, I will see there is a actions tab. Let me go to that actions tab. What do I want to do? I want to create action set here, right? Whenever this property changes, right? See, do I see a change here in the actions? Of course, this property will be editable where the user will be providing some, you know, he'll be providing some agency code, right? That's why it is editable. And on change, what do I want to do? Let me say I want to refresh this section. Okay, I want to refresh this section. Okay, and let me submit. Let us see if that gets triggered. Of course, this name, the next property, which is agency name, should be read only. Why? Because we are mapping it through the activity. Yes or no? And I'll change this. Right now it is editable. I'll change this to read only. How can I do that? Come to presentation and you should be able to change it to read only. Always. Something which you have done already many times. All that I am doing is modifying the presentation to read only. It shouldn't be editable. Why? Because we are populating it based on activity. We'll stitch this together, don't worry about that. So this activity, what it is doing, it is calling that particular decision table and it is populating the agency name. Let us see if that happens. Sorry. Now I have to go to my flow to execute this. Where can I find my flow, guys? Where can I find my flow? Under which category? Process. Very good. Right. Expand the process category. Go to your flow. This is my customer flow. Right. Actions. Run. Of course, I do have a lot of validations here. For now, I'll bypass them and I'll show you how we can, block them while execution also later. Right now, let me run that and show you how exactly this is executed. See, right now, the agency name is not available, is it? Is it available, guys? So let me provide some junk characters. See, I changed this and I hit tab. Do you see agency name getting populated? I didn't even submit. Do you see? Did I submit it? Yes, no. Without even submitting, this thing got called. Just open your tracer and you should be able to see that. The declare on change in action. Now, if I want Bangalore there, I will have to just pass whatever is there for Bangalore. AG002. Just see this. See, I have not even submitted it. No action performed. I just provided this value and it changed to Bangalore. Declare on change is using a decision table to pop up this value. This is read-only value. Based on what agency code is passed, this particular value is getting picked from the decision table and getting mapped to the UI and it's getting displayed. Yes or no, guys? See? Do we see the activity getting called on change? Whenever the value is getting changed, my agency map activity is getting called. Yes or no? See, and the value is getting set. Whatever value you are looking for is getting set. If you open this, Sometimes you'll see that this is blocked, so enable this guy or else you won't be able to see. Okay. Sorry. PY work page. If you open the PY work page, you should be able to see the agency name updated. See, agency code is 0002, which we passed. See the agency name, Bangalore. Is it being set, guys? Are we able to understand how a decision table can be used? Yes? No? Perfect. So all that we did today here is, creating a decision table which will help us evaluate set of conditions based on which a value is returned. If I pass this, Bangalore is returned. If I don't pass any of this, in the sense, if I pass something junk, it's not an agency, no agency available with us. If I pass 03, it should return Hyderabad. And to stitch it with my user interface, what I did, I created an activity which calls this particular decision table, and what it is doing, whatever is the return of that particular decision table is getting mapped to this particular property, which is agency name, which is read only on my user interface. The user can't modify it. All he can do is just provide the agency code, and we are going to tell him, in the sense the application is going to tell him what is this particular agency code mapped to. And to enable that on UI, what I did was, whenever the user is going to change the agency code value, we are triggering a declare on change. But how does the user UI know that it has to trigger? I have configured a refresh whenever that value changes, yes or no. On the agency section, if you come and see, whenever this agency code value changes, I have set a action. I have told, trigger whenever it is changing, refresh this section. And when it refreshes, it calls the declare on change. What is the declare on change? Something which we have created. Fill agency name. The agency code is going to be passed to this activity, and then the agency name is going to be populated. Are we understanding how the flow is happening here, guys? On the agency section, I have told, hey, whenever this particular property changes, refresh this. So Pega, what it does, when you refresh it, you have told on change, refresh this section. Pega automatically calls if there is a declare on change associated with this property. Yes, there is, right? I have a declare on change specified, which is this guy on agency code, and calls the activity with that particular agency code value which the user provided, which was AG002, and then goes into that activity, which is agency map activity, which got called from the declare on change rule. Two rules we saw today: agency, the decision table, as well as declare on change. I know what values are to be returned. I designed my decision table. For Monday, I want to do legs. I know that. And the other values I have defined here. But to call this on UI, I'll need activity and a declare on change. I defined activity where I'm calling that decision table. To call that decision table, I'm using a method called property map decision table. And I'm saying this is the property I want to populate or update or have a value for from this decision table. Whatever the result comes, please map it to this agency name, is what I'm asking Pega to do as part of this activity. And this activity has to be triggered whenever the agency code is changed. Whenever it is changed, I want to trigger it. To achieve that, I am using the declare on change rule. same thing is reflecting on UI. Is it happening, guys? Do we understand what is a decision table? Perfect. As part of this, I also want to help you understand how can you block the, for example, if I'm creating another case, and if I'm proceeding ahead, I have so many validation rules which are getting triggered. Of course, first name, last name, because I have declare constraints as well as obj validate defined and edit validate defined. All I can do is to stop this rules from triggering, I can shut them down. How can I do it? You can go to your work class. What's wrong with this guy? Refresh this. So I want to show you how you can block execution of certain rules. That's what I want to show you. Like the validation rules, like they stop us from creating the work objects and proceeding ahead. So I just want to show you as part of today's class how you can do that also. The only takeaways from today's class are like, how to create a decision table, how you can specify values there based on property using multiple if and else, and how to create a declare on change rule and utilize it, right? Right now, my declare constraint is active and it is getting executed. You can stop that. You can just set open the declare constraint rule, ABC constraints. If I don't want this to be executed, all I can do is come inside that and you can set the availability of this particular rule to withdrawn. Just click on this available. If you open the rule, there is availability of that rule. We'll be doing a detailed class on that, but right now set this to withdrawn and you will see that this particular declare constraint won't be triggered. To turn off the validation, the obj validate, all we had to do is we have to remove it from the flow action, I think, which we already did. We removed it from there, but edit validate is still getting triggered. So to stop the edit validate also, what all you can do is go to the age property and then from the advanced category delete it off if you don't want right now to trigger that. We defined it on the validation tab. I'll remove it off, so none of those validations will be triggered and you can smoothly cruise through your work object creation. Revisiting what we have already done right now, right? Creating one more work object to understand how exactly agency code is getting utilized, right? Submit. None of the validations should trigger. See, all the validation got bypassed. AG001 Delhi to Bangalore 3 Hyderabad 4 Chennai 5 Mumbai 6 not available. No agency available for that. Was it understood, guys? Perfect. So this is what was supposed to be conveyed today as part of today's class. We wanted to like let you know how exactly you can make use of decision table and declare on change rules to create, you know, or fetch a value based on a certain decision which was being made as part of this user interface design. If that was conveyed, that would be it for today. If you guys have any questions, I can take them.